Today we are learning basketball with James Plowright at British_Buzz on Twitter. He covers the Charlotte Hornets with Buzz City. You already know. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And look, I'm hoping this is normally the case that I'm your first British guest on the podcast, and I will do my best to represent my country proudly.
Off the top of my head, I think you are. We've had some friends around the globe, I guess, but I think you are the first British guest. So congrats, James. Big time moves. On that note, NBA London.
Absolutely.
What were the games like?
NBA London was good. Well, there was a mixture of good. It was interesting having the underlying storyline of the Jar drama right as NBA London was happening, and him being on the world stage in front of media. Probably didn't quite go how the NBA drew it up. But the game itself was a bit of a letdown, right? The Grizzlies absolutely blew out the Magic. But it was like, we don't get many NBA games in London. Beggars can't be choosers. It's always a privilege to go and cover the game. Got to connect with some good people. Compared to the last time the NBA hosted London, media have definitely been moved back a little bit in the seating, as things tends to go these days. But it was a good experience, and really two interesting teams to cover in the Grizz and the Magic.
Yeah, I could definitely, just from covering the Magic, I have a feeling they were just totally out of gas by that point. Like, given what was going on their own team, like they had built up the Germany matchup as basically like the biggest game of the season because there's 3 Germans on the team that are all very much looking forward to that moment. Franz kind of came back early from injury, has even said so, and has been out ever since these games because of it. And who knows what happened to his ankle there, but that's how important that game was, which understandable. Like, these guys grew up in Germany. To have the NBA there and have an actual game there when they grew up thinking this place is just a far dream they'll never reach. They just want to be a part of that moment. Anthony Black has that huge dunk, and they win the game, and they're on an all-time high. They kind of came to do what they wanted to do, and I think they were just dead tired. But that's just a guess from afar that they kind of put all their energy into at least winning that first one and splitting it, and maybe that's a little bit of why it was such a no-show. And Ja really came out like with a bang for Memphis. Like, he was really on one for Memphis there as kind of like putting on a show in his own right. So that was kind of fun to see star Ja Morant do his thing. Speaking of some of these stars, I thought before we dive into all things Hornets, who are just ravaging the league right now, and one of the best offenses in the NBA, if not the best, they've been the number one offense since, I don't know, at least December 10th, which could be even farther, but that's the farthest back I saw. They've been up there, though, all season. So we'll dig into what's different about Charlotte. But first, we got to start with the All-Snub team. I hope you prepared your list. I got some guys here. I'm thinking like we both come up with maybe our 5 All-Snub team, like our starting 5, and maybe we just draft them because I think there's enough to draft a 5-man lineup each of All-Snubs, because otherwise we'll probably just have the same snub. Who was your biggest snub from the All-Star game?
So I think my biggest snub is probably Michael Porter Jr. In the Eastern Conference, Michael Porter Jr. And I'd say for Norm Powell, I was just kind of surprised that Norm Powell made it. I know Michael Porter Jr. is on a terrible team, but if you look at every advanced stat, you look at his efficiency on a team that is trying to lose, it is pretty remarkable. Like, I've seen a lot of good players on bad teams as someone who follows the Charlotte Hornets closely, and putting up the scoring efficiency that Michael Porter Jr. is doing while like playing with a bunch of rookies and guys looking for a way out of Brooklyn. I've been really impressed with what he's done this year. And I just like, in what world Norm Powell is a good scorer, I understand, but I just think it's one of those things that we look back in 5 years and we're like, Norm Powell's an all-star. So he's my number one snub, I think, from this. And I'm surprised Norm Powell made it.
Yeah, that's a fair one. That's definitely one of the names I would look at, like maybe a fringe, like not a fringe candidate for the All-Star team. LeBron kind of feels like he got the legacy vote this time around. Like it probably could have gone a few other ways. Like I think Kawhi has clearly been like all NBA level for like this insane stretch like that the Clippers are on. Like that's my probably pick here. But I know they started off slow. Sengun, I think, is the other guy that's just probably done enough for this Rockets team that's really good on both ends, and he's a huge part of it. And putting up all these numbers as a playmaker, as a scorer, impact numbers. So, those are definitely some of the main names that stand out for me. So let's do it draft style. You got Michael Porter number 1. I'll go Kawhi and Sengun with the back-to-back picks, and we're going snake draft. So you could take the next 2 for who you want to highlight for 2 more snubs.
Well, I'm going to take James Harden next.
All right.
I think I would have actually had James Harden ahead of Kawhi Leonard before the latest trade request.
All right.
I just think the role that he has played this year, like carrying that team earlier in the season, he's played almost like 50% more minutes than LeBron James. He's had to just carry so much more responsibility, and he's been pretty available throughout the course of the season. So I know they weren't great early, but I think James Harden was keeping it afloat, and he's been a big part of what they've been doing recently. And I don't love the stylistic way of watching James Harden play basketball, but I can't dispute that he is an incredibly talented offensive player in a team which doesn't have much offensive talent, especially when Kawhi's not out on the floor. So I'll go Kawhi next. And then my next guy will be Evan Mobley, who has definitely had a down year offensively. He hasn't made the step you want him to make. I watch Cleveland quite a lot, and when he is on the floor, they're just a different beast offensively. Just a completely different team with what they can do. And this is one where it's not really like, you look at the box score numbers, you go, what? But the defense from Evan Mobley is a difference maker. I think the Cavs are 25-17 with Mobley, and they're basically a 500 basketball team without Mobley. And I think you can really see that coming through when you watch the eye test. So a little bit of a defense first one, which isn't always in the style of the All-Star game, but those are my next 2 picks.
No, I like it. Mobley is definitely a guy I wanted to highlight at some point. He hasn't taken like that next leap to superstardom that a lot of people are expecting, but he's still been solid as kind of their defensive anchor. He made that leap last year to be more dynamic on the ball, and has been a huge part of the Cavs kind of bouncing back. And he isn't putting up the numbers offensively and helping quite that much as Donovan Mitchell does on a night-to-night basis and the responsibility he has. But he holds that defense together. He's a unicorn in his own right, and definitely had to get highlighted at some point. And Harden's been putting up he's putting up all-star numbers, like you're saying. His a reliable offensive engine throughout for that team, always has been and can be counted on. And at least when he's around on the team, we'll see what the latest demands mean for Harden. I'm gonna go with his former teammate Joel Embiid with the next pick. I think he's really been fun to see him come back and be a part of the Sixers' success and just look like his star self, look athletic. Like when he threw down the alley-oop off Maxey, and the whole team was celebrating like they just won the championship. Like it was just like a feel-good moment in Philly where they're like, all right, we got our guy back. He's got some bounce back. He's looking like Embiid again, and Maxey's doing his thing. So this could really be dynamic pairing. It's a shame, they lost Paul George for 25 games with a drug suspension. He was said he thought it was for his mental health and didn't know it was on a banned list. So that's rough to lose a guy like that just out of the blue for 25 games. So we'll see how that affects them. But, Embiid himself, I think, as long as he stays healthy, he's rounding back into his star form. So that's cool to see. And, at this point in the all-snub draft, I'm feeling a little homery, really. Honestly, I wouldn't even be mad at you if you had thrown out Kon Knueppel by now or LaMelo, because they're so exciting, what they've done this last run. We'll get to how they really have turned the season around, and are winning more games than they're losing. Obviously on a 7-game winning streak right now, so that's not a bad choice. But I'm stuck between one of Bane or Paolo, and I do think they fell a little bit in the playoffs, so it wasn't a guarantee. But kind of for the same reason Norm Powell made it. Like Bane and Paolo are still keeping the Magic afloat. Like they're still, like, Bane has had multiple game winners. He's had the big games that an all-star has. He just hasn't, because of his shooting volatility and the way they use him on different nights, he hasn't really been as consistent. But Paolo's been his all-star self for 15 games now. Like, he's looked like his all-star numbers. The Magic are only about 500 in that stretch. But, Paolo's been putting up, 26, 10, and 5 and on efficient numbers. carrying this offense in a lot of ways, and they're still trying to figure out the best way to use everybody and build that versatile offensive attack where everyone's involved a little bit. But Paolo's still putting up his numbers, and they're both positive impact while doing it. The Magic are still an 8 seed in the East while doing it. Like, I think if you're going to credit playoff teams like that, that's a factor, and it's probably a big factor that Norm Powell made it. So, to me, either of them over Pascal Siakam would have been fine to me, because Siakam's on the, like, if not the worst team in the league, one of them, like, they're the 15th seed in the East. How often does, the 15th seed get an All-Star? But to your point, it's very interesting where the overlap lies between, wins, who's credited for impacting those wins, and insane individual production where the team isn't winning games, but this guy is clearly an all-star level talent putting up numbers. And, how do the voters kind of weigh that? And it's different for everybody, but, where do you draw that line, I guess, in weighing wins?
Well, the benefit that Pascal Siakam had is that everyone just saw him playing in the NBA Finals last summer, right?
Right.
So there is no question about, is Siakam a winning player? Could he be doing more to lift the Pacers up from where they are? There's kind of an acceptance that he's an impactful player, and he's looking much the same, and some of his scoring has gone up. His efficiency's only dipped marginally. Whereas for most 14th, 15th seeds, normally those are the allegations thrown at a player, right? You had it with Devin Booker and Phoenix for years. You still have it with LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. It's that, hey, these guys don't drive winnings. Why are their team always so bad if they're all-star caliber players? And the truth is, like, every just context is different. And there are scenarios where you have worthy all-stars on low teams. And there are also scenarios where, like, I don't believe you should just get a participation award, because you could have a great team and you don't just get, a player to be an all-star because you have to have someone because you're a top 6 or 7 seed. That's just kind of like how I view these things, that you should look at every situation within a vacuum, and not kind of like just take these kind of like league themed norms.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. And I think all NBA, is also a different, like, equation than all-star as well. And maybe that is one that also weighs winning a little more. Like, all-stars should not matter as much in the legacy talks. It should just be kind of fun for fans, get the most exciting players out there. Like, Michael Porter Jr.'s game is built for the all-star game. Like, I am totally here for, this guy is better, so we'll consider him for the real awards. But this guy's slightly more entertaining or more efficient or high flyer or more popular this year or more fun to watch and deserves a little bit more all-star consideration. Like, a LaMelo Ball is just, built for this type of atmosphere. A walking highlight, most exciting player in the league for a reason. So, like, there are a lot of different factors for that I agree. It should be more kind of fun, or more individual, more about the individual in that sense than necessarily. But, I still do weigh winning, where, like, I feel like the Magic were robbed, as a Magic fan back in 2009, when they had Dwight. They had 2 All-Stars, and they voted Dwight, Jameer, and Rashard Lewis, and I thought Hedo Turkoglu was their second most important player, and he got robbed. No one's ever happy through all of this, but that's just how it goes. So I'll go with Paulo as the official pick there, with the numbers. He's got the positive impact in the All-Star numbers, and that's my 4th All-Snub. So I think that sends it back to you for your 4th and 5th.
Yeah, I will go LaMelo Ball and Brandon Ingram. And LaMelo Ball, I'm taking my advantage of recording this, probably like 2 weeks after actual ballots by the coaches had to get handed in. Because I think if you did another poll of coaches of, like, who are the All-Stars today versus then, I think, like, the Hornets and LaMelo would be my pick, probably, despite the minutes. And this is a hard thing, right? I wish there was, like, a rule around minutes in terms of, like, you must have played X number of minutes to be eligible for NBA All-Star voting, because it's just so hard when different voters, some people say, well, LeBron hasn't played enough. Well, he's played 1,000 minutes, and then people say LaMelo has played enough. It's just so complicated with these comparing minutes. But I'll go LaMelo Ball. I think he's been the primary driver of kind of efficient offense this year, of winning. He's the most impact on the Hornets team with his on-off, and you can really feel it because they don't really have a great backup point guard option at the minute. And with Brandon Ingram, I think he started the season really hot. He's tailed off a little bit here, but he has helped elevate the Toronto Raptors to a higher level than we've seen previously. And again, he carries quite a high usage rate on that Raptors team. He's the guy with the ball in his hands at the end of games. He's a higher offensive option now than Scotty Barnes, who's almost playing a kind of like role player style. And I'd give a little bit of credit there. I mean, I don't think we're at the point where any of these snubs are real snubs. I'll be honest. Like, I don't think any of these guys have good or strong cases. But you're making me pick, and we're getting down to the next of the best.
No, I like it. I would, yeah, I think when it comes to the real snubs, like, I think, we've highlighted the three names that were probably like, had the biggest case against them. Like LeBron, mostly a legacy vote. Siakam, not winning any games. Norm Powell, kind of like the super role player, getting rewarded as the most consistent part of a playoff team and heat culture, like you're saying. Like
Karl Towns, maybe? I didn't love that one either.
Yeah, Towns and Booker were two more on my potential takeoff list just because of, the scoring and shooting. But they're great talents and all that. There's a reason they made it. But, they pretty much, they wouldn't be locks any more than these other guys, I think is the point. Where, really any of these names could be considered real like snubs in a case. There's a reason we're doing the all snub team. I think I agree. Only Kawhi is really the one for me where he's just been on such an all NBA tear. And I know you do prefer Harden there for crediting there, but he's just been on such a tear for me where I would have him as a bit of a snub because I think he's on an all NBA pace and he'll just be one of these guys that didn't make All-Star, but he did make All-NBA. And then, like you said, we look back, it's like, how did Norm Powell make it over Kawhi that year? But, that's just how it works sometimes. So to round out my top five, honestly, I'm going to do it. Shout out to Julius Randle. Shout out to De'Aaron Fox, Derek White, Lauri Markkanen, even Jimmy Butler before he got hurt. This is a celebration of the Hornets podcast. I'm getting Kon Knueppel on my all-snub team. He's been insane. I love watching Kon. He rounds out my offense here a little bit. Let's do it right. Let's do the buzz beat, the British buzz right today. Buzz City. Bring Kon Knueppel on. Round out my half court. I need a little half court offensive juice to run around and create everything for all these big men. I got 4 big men to play with, so we got Kon running point. Shout out to Julius Randle, though. He probably should be on one of these teams as well. He's been great for Minnesota as their kind of second best creator. De'Aaron Fox holding the Spurs together when Wemby's out. They're pretty bad with Fox off the floor and pretty good with him on the floor. Derek White stepping in as, a guy for Boston next to with Jason Tatum out next to Jaylen Brown, co-star, keeping them alive with, some championship experience. And like you said, like there is something to Siakam proving it on, being the co-star with Kawhi, being a champion, making the finals as the co-star with Halliburton. No one's questioning if Siakam brings winning impact, and his numbers have only increased with more usage and efficiency. Like, he's done everything he's supposed to. And it is very much a cool way to honor Siakam's production and individual season in what is otherwise a very low point for the Pacers this year. That all of that is pretty cool to kind of celebrate his season as well. So I get it. So, I think we hit most of these names. Markkanen also has better numbers than his All-Star year, so at least a shout to him. Anyone we didn't hit?
Nope. I think we're done All-Star snubs. The end of the All-Star teams this year just really wasn't that high quality. Like, I don't feel too passionately about really any of these snubs. It's we have to have the conversation, but it's not a year where I feel like there was a massive miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. We had to give credit really to the guys that didn't make it is really the point of this exercise. Just a little shout out to some of these guys that really should have been considered, and you can only pick 30, and there are a clear 20 guys or so that were just pretty special so far this season, so it wasn't too hard there. So let's switch over to the Hornets. They're having an unreal run here. They've won 7 in a row, 12 of their last 17. I have their stats going back to December 10th. They're 16-11, 4th best point differential in the league since December 10th. Tied for number one offense with the Celtics since that span. doing it in a whole bunch of ways with the 8th best defense to boot. I mean, that's contender level point differential offensively and defensively. So that's the big question to start: is what turned around the season for Charlotte? What's working all of a sudden? How do they have the best offense in the league with half a rotation full of rookies and young players?
Well, the first thing you have to headline everything is health. Okay, it is number one. This is the first time, and obviously the first time we had Kon Knueppel, but this is the first time they've had LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller both not just healthy and on the floor together, because they did share the floor at times to start last season, but both uninhibited by their current, by previous injuries. Even when they've played together before, there's been one of them's been dealing with an ankle sprain, the other one's been dealing with a back issue. They've been playing, but never 100%, and they've been in and out the lineup. And this is the first time we've had LaMelo, Brandon Miller, add Kon Knueppel into that group, who's obviously been incredible as a rookie. You've got a three-headed monster, right, who is able to generate good offense. All guys who can dribble, pass, shoot, have skill, IQ. And that's where it starts. It's just by having your best players on the floor. It's not rocket science, but it's something that the Hornets have not had now, I want to say, in 4 years, since the last time they made the play-in. So as someone who's followed the Hornets, we do not take that just for granted. But it's not just that, okay? There's been a sprinkling of other influences here as well. I think, ironically, Ryan Kalkbrenner getting injured and that forcing Moussa Diabate into the starting lineup this year has helped them kind of stumble into this lineup, which is the best lineup in the NBA right now of the starting five. And them going to this more switch-heavy scheme with Moussa has really helped just absolutely boost this offense. And it's a little bit like when the Warriors stumbled into Draymond Green at center when David Lee got injured. It wasn't by design, it was by accident, but it's absolutely worked. And Moussa Diabate has just been the perfect guy to complement these guys, to help them win the possession battle on the offensive glass, to always keep the ball in front and to switch everything well, to play with a motor which is kind of infectious and helps his teammates. So everything that Moussa's brought to this team has just boosted this offense and the defense at the same time to a different level than it was earlier in the season. And then finally, I think you're looking at Charles Lee, the head coach. I think he's opened up his playbook a little bit. They've, introduced more guard-to-guard screens, more zoom action to get their guys downhill. They're generating a ton of catch-and-shoot threes, which is what this team really trying to do. And they've got a real identity on both ends of what they're trying to get to. And they've got everybody buying in to that plan. And that is every single coach in the NBA has ideas of, hey, this is how we should play, and this is what we should focus on. And the real key is, can you get your players to buy into whatever you're trying to sell them? And the times we see coaches fail is when the players aren't buying it. They don't believe what the coach is selling. And this is something that absolutely he's got everybody buying in. There is no egos in this team. There is no stars. LaMelo Ball has completely changed his play style from last year. And Charles Lee, I think, deserves a lot of credit for, in year two, adapting his offense and defense and getting more out of his players. So no one single reason. And there's even more reasons on top of that. But those are some, I think, of the big headliners.
Yeah, I really like how you outlined it there. I mean, the Diabate thing was something I wanted to ask about a little later, but we could definitely start with that. The long-term outlook between him and Kalkbrenner, because, Kalkbrenner was solid right away with a high floor and would hit all the things he promised to do. Yep. But at the end of the day, he is kind of that limited drop center, that old school traditional center. So with a guy like Diabate, if you unlock switchable defense and that dynamic vertical gravity rim rolling off of all the pick and rolls, that really takes this offense to another level. You mentioned Charles Lee. I'm gonna see if I can get this to pull up. I was able to ask him a little bit about some of these when the Hornets were in town against the Magic. So we might be able to hear some of his thoughts and maybe see what you think about that, because it reminded me of what you were just saying when it comes to the inverted ball screens. But tell me a little bit about Kon Knueppel himself. Just obviously insane rookie shooting numbers versus Steph Curry, basically the best rookie 3-point shooter ever, other than Steph Curry, is what most of these numbers are saying. But what really stands out to me is not just the pick and rolls, but the relocation and the guard to guard screens you mentioned. Just being able to Like, have him and LaMelo constantly drive and kick, relocate to the ball, come in for a handoff, drive and kick again to each other, and just this never-ending machine where they just seem to be in such sync all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Kon is being kind of discussed as a shooter, and just like Stephen Curry, like Steph is not just a shooter, right? He's an incredibly well-rounded basketball player. And right. I think Knueppel, I did a breakdown of his career high the other day, and I mean, I remember listing, he scored out of the pick and roll as a ball handler, where he like was able to cross over and get into the lane and finish. He can get to the mid-range as well. If people close out hard, get to the mid-range pull-up. He can space out in the corner. He gets open in transition. He can curl off screens. You can hit him as the roll man who can finish little floaters. And he's a really good connective passer, kind of playing off 2 feet within 15 feet in as well. So he has just so many ways that he can get you. There was even another play, like he caught the ball on the wing and Max Christie was guarding him, just blew right past him. And you don't like think that's something that Kon would be able to do, but he was able to get his shoulders past Christie and then go up and finish softly on the glass. He's just a really well-rounded scorer, and he does not need the ball, and it's all efficient and quick. He does not dance with the ball. He does not really dribble the ball all that much. It is all super quick decision-making, drive and kick. If he's open, he'll shoot it. If he's not, he'll probably make a well-disguised pass. And he just keeps this offense ticking over and gives it a real kind of pressure release valve. And, you know, teams have worked so hard to take away Kon Knueppel in this last 6 weeks after his strong start. And they've had some success. Like, it's slowed down a little bit recently, apart from against Dallas. But then what you can't do is it's like whack-a-mole. You can't then stop Brandon Miller or LaMelo Ball going off. So you've got these 3 guys who all have the ability to kind of like be played through on offense at any one point. And depending how the opposing defense is playing you, the Hornets can adapt their style to fit.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, Kon Knueppel is like the epitome of an offensive engine prospect. And it took me a little bit in the draft process to see that. But once I saw his 2 feet in the paint finishing clips as a prospect, that was one thing that really won me over. His ability to just get to his spots in the paint, get 2 feet down, and get any shot he wants at his own pace. And beyond that, just the insane like passing touch and feel for the game he shows. He showed at Duke, like taking over for Cooper Flagg when he went down, running that offense. That was a little flash of what he could do with the ball in his hands a little more often. And now it's just full bloom, like scoring creator. That's kind of my next question is, you know, has he kind of taken over as the number one option scoring creator to the primary decision maker for this offense to either score or create? Or is it at least kind of a complete co-share of those responsibilities between all 3 of these guys? Charles Lee, I asked him about the off-ball movement, and he hit on a lot of what you were saying of they are one of the highest pick and roll teams in the league, but they do see relocation as, you know, the next frontier for this offense with these guys just constantly being to take turns as a 3-headed monster, the way you put it. I also asked him about inverted ball screens the first time around, and Charles Lee said, I think that inverted ball screen set and the 3-man action just adds confusion, because this was right when they were really rolling in a lot of Kon Knueppel and LaMelo Ball coming up to set the screens or slip the screens or pop out of the screens with their relocation, like you were hitting on before. And Charles went on to say, in that moment of hesitation, there's breakdown in your coverage. That allows for downhill penetration, or the big gets behind the other big. So I think the biggest part that we talk about is not allowing that small to screen our big in that inverted pick and roll, but also just communicating and trying to have this sense of not allowing the ball to get downhill. So that's, you know, kind of his more of his defensive game plan with it, and the idea that 3-man action with inverted ball screens just adds confusion. And that seems to be the real core of, you know, all these guards and all these guys being able to basically threaten both everything at once. They can run off screens for off ball movement threes. They can run to the ball for a quick pull up 3. They can stand off ball for catch and shoot 3s. And they've all accepted their roles of drive and kick. The ball's going to come back to me if I just play team basketball, and somebody's going to go off because of it. And that's just really rare. It's what the Magic are trying to get to, and they haven't landed there yet. And the big thing that, you know, stands out that has to be understated as well is good health. Like, that it all starts there. Everyone being healthy, 100%, not recovering from anything, is how you see the full version of a basketball team. And that simply is very rare to happen in the NBA nowadays for long periods of time. So getting to see that really lets you see what you have, and now you can build from there. So I know we hit on a lot there, but any other thoughts with the big three scores and just kind of their impact? Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, and Kon Knueppel as just kind of the offense, or is it officially a pecking order starting with Kon Knueppel now?
Yeah, he's definitely third on the pecking order. It's not even like a discussion. There was a moment earlier in the year when Kon was a little bit higher up, but that was when LaMelo was missing time and Brandon was missing time, and he was almost the de facto top option for like a 5-game span. But now, really, it is LaMelo Ball and it is Brandon Miller especially. Like, he is ascending, and as the Hornets have played well here, Brandon Miller has been probably the Hornets' best player over the last 4 to 6 weeks when the Hornets have picked this up.
Okay,
and I think that's okay. Again, it does flex every night, but generally, Kon is best playing off advantage, and just because and Brandon Miller is a guy who's like there. Okay, you're going to switch us. This is the guy who's going to try and like get his spot and attack switches and attack smalls and things of that nature. So I would say it's kind of like a LaMelo in a free flowing state of offense. It's LaMelo's the top option or top decision maker, I should say. And then if it's kind of getting down to like late clock situation, then the ball's probably in Brandon's hands. But then Kon Knueppel is able to kind of like dial it up and dial it back as and when he's needed. That's, a really unique thing about him. So I wouldn't by any way say that Kon Knueppel is the top option in this team. I don't think he is. And I think it's probably how you get the best out of Kon Knueppel either. He's never going to be, I don't want to say never, but he's unlikely to ever be just like Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker. You give me the ball and kind of everyone clear out and let me go to work. That's just not Kon's game. He plays in a team concept too much. So that's how I would view that situation. I also wanted to touch on, we talk about all the ball, the relocation threes. This is why offensive rebounding is so important for this team. And they are the top 3 offensive rebounding team in the NBA. They've been the top team at times this year. It's because when they get those offensive rebounds, you've got like LaMelo Ball, Kon Knueppel, and Brandon Miller spaced out beyond the arc. And either the pass goes straight out to them and they're open for 3 off the offensive rebound, which we know the percentages of offensive rebounds are super high, or like the defense doesn't scramble. One of them can drive, make the defense scramble even more, and like eventually everyone is just going to relocate till eventually they're going to find an open 3 from somewhere. So this kind of offensive rebounding mix really fits this team because of their 3-point threat, which they carry from so many different areas.
That's a great point. I mean, like the idea that you're a good offensive rebounding team, create second chance possessions, and you have 3 knockdown shooters ready to kill a scrambling defense. I mean, that's something that makes the Warriors so impossible too. Back in the day was just a backbreaker if they got another look, because there's always just lethal shooters around everywhere. Since December 10th, they're first in offense with, like you said, second in offensive rebounding, 4th on defensive rebounding, and 6th on shooting efficiency, 5th on defensive shooting efficiency, defending without fouling, top 10 as well. So how much of, I'm not sure when the Kalkbrenner injury happened, but he brought some shot blocking, some rebounding. Would you say that their switch heavy defense with Diabate has simply been better than that since then, because of the switching, because of the versatility of it all, and still maintaining maybe even improving the defense since they're number 8 since December 10th, if that roughly lines up?
Yes, I would. I think the starting 4 with Moussa Diabate per clean in the glass are plus 33. With Ryan Kalkbrenner, I think they're plus 2. Right, so you're talking like a massive difference in just performance of the team. And the other thing with Moussa is his ability to switch defensively, but on the offensive end, he's just a quicker decision maker. Like, you can get that ball moving. He can handle the ball in like dribble handoff scenarios a lot quicker and make decisions and find the weak side of the floor, which Kalkbrenner, that was kind of like a little bit new to him, and that was slowing things up. and everything the Hornets do on offense is about like speed, getting multiple actions in one play. And Musa's just better, I think, suited to do that. But ultimately, it does depend on matchup. I think they are like, if you got in the playoffs, and depending against the matchup you're going against, there could be scenarios where Ryan Kalkbrenner was better suited. So in the New Orleans game last night, for example, where you've got Zion like attacking the rim over and over like a battering ram, like Ryan Kalkbrenner could really help with that last night. And he had more success in the second half. He was a big part of that comeback because Zion was trying to get downhill and Ryan Kalkbrenner was just able to meet him there. In other games where you need more perimeter players, and you've got more threat from the outside, from guards, then Musa's going to help you do that because he's going to help you keep the ball in front, and he's not going to kind of give up kind of mid 18-foot, 20-foot pull-up jumpers, which Ryan Kalkbrenner will give up all day. So I do think there is an element of who are you going up against in a playoff series. The roles could flex, but so far, like over a larger sample size, you can't make any argument to say that Ryan Kalkbrenner should be the starter ahead of Moussa Diabate, at least not right now.
Yeah, no, those are great points, and I really like the emphasis there that basketball can be very matchup based, and having the depth of both of those options is huge for this Hornets team because just being while one lineup is clearly more of a death lineup built for modern basketball that you want to start and close games with and play as much as you can, there's still 48 minutes to fill. You still have to play 82 games. And Kalkbrenner is that sturdy Brook Lopez presence that you can just count on to play traditional drop coverage over the aggregate of the regular season, while also busting out in these big matchups, like you said, where maybe Diabate has a size mismatch and is losing his matchup. And like he might be great as a part of a lineup when things are rolling, but not every lineup is matchup proof. So, because someone is versatile doesn't mean they're great against every matchup. It means they can pretty much handle every matchup. So, having the depth of options, being able to throw Kalkbrenner in to start against a certain playoff series when it feels right or close against the right matchup. I mean, that's great to have. It's like just having a sturdy, steady backup, which ultimately could be what he is anyway, unless he develops that three. Because he, to his credit, like the Hornets were still solid with him as a starter, but like you said, it was +2 compared to plus 30 net rating. So that's where that could play in. I want to round out the pod here with some role players.
And another thing with both of them, I was just going to quickly say, like, they've got no ego. If both of them, you could change the lineup tomorrow, and both of them would be happy pulling for one another. And again, like you don't always see that in the NBA. You don't always see that kind of like politics-free zone, and that's where I credit really Charles Lee and his staff for creating that culture and that environment where people will take joy in others' success, and everyone's not just out looking for themselves.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask what you would credit for that, and Charles Lee clearly making an imprint on this team, and clearly making a difference. I mean, this team is healthy. They're flying around. The offense is super fun. I think LaMelo Ball is the most exciting player in basketball now. Like he's just as exciting as Steph to the kids, I think, and to viewers are one of, and being unlocked within this scheme where everyone's involved like this, and just that selfless style of play where anyone can go off any night, but maybe it is Brandon Miller for the last month having a hot stretch, and maybe next month it'll be LaMelo, but just having the depth of options where the scalability of Kon you mentioned already, being able to go down to more of a lead decision maker, playmaker. That's probably where he is best as well, with Miller focusing on the scoring, LaMelo doing a little bit of both between the threes and the connecting. It's just fun to watch. They're the league pass team. They're the team on the rise, I think, right now, and they're headed for the playoffs. I mean, they're right now the 11th seed in the East, working their way back up. They're 23-28 on the season, but like we said, 7 in a row, best offense for 15 straight, if not 30 straight games, and surging really. So lastly, on the role players, would you credit anyone else that we haven't mentioned for some of the second unit success? Sion James, or it might be Sion. I might have mispronounced that, but he stood out right away as a slasher.
Yeah.
Sion role player. So, he's a good basketball player, good role player that can get to the rim and attack closeouts. I liked how they drafted Liam McNeeley, a 3-point connector type role player, kind of a little bit different variety of a role player. I like both of those picks as potential guys for them to join the rotation down the line. And Liam, to his credit, is converting 38% on 2 threes a game. Technically a 2.0 assist to turnover ratio, kind of living up to that 3-point connector stuff. Good athlete. He was a high school killer. So rooting for Liam, and Tre Mann and Sexton, doing their thing, scoring off the bench. So I think all these guys are impressive. Has any one guy really stood out as a part of this team's success?
I guess the quick answer is no. I do not think there is one guy. It has definitely been a contribution by committee. Like, everyone's had games. Collin Sexton's had games where he's been, the Hornets' third best player on the floor. You've had Josh Green come back and Grant Williams, since they've come back from injury, where they've really made a difference to this lineup. As I mentioned earlier, Ryan Kalkbrenner has been good off the bench since he's come back. Sion James has had games where defensively he's looked like one of the best defensive guards in the league, especially against OKC. If you go back to watch Sion Games matched up against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Sion was like incredible defensively in that game. But then there's been other games where like Sion's looked a little bit out of his depth running the point, and he's been really inefficient from the field offensively. So like, I wouldn't say any of them have really kind of like popped individually. They've all had like solid times, but the big thing is they all compete really hard. They all execute. They play well together. And that's where like they've not been a good offensive bench unit, but they've been pretty well organized defensively. I mean, Grant Williams, Josh Green, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, that's a pretty talented defensive four to build around. And Charles Lee's recently has always incorporated to try and have 2 of Ball, Miller, or Kon with that bench unit at all times. So with one of those, 3 of those 4 people, so you've kind of got like 2 offensive engine drivers surrounded by good defensive players. And they're probably never going to be units that kind of light the world of light on offense, but they're going to be pretty good defensively. And that's saying a lot considering you've got 2 rookies, right, in Kalkbrenner and Sion. But so Sion James' defense, I mean, he's the best pound-for-pound defender on the team. Charles Lee's uses him that way, deploys him at the end of quarters, the end of games on the opposition's best player. So the fact that you've got 2 defensive-minded rookies who are making major impacts on that side of the floor, that's something this team needed because it's not blessed with defense from many of its other veteran players. So I wouldn't say there's any one single guy who jumps out. Collin Sexton's probably one statistically who does because of the scoring, but he's one of those guys, you watch him closely, you get kind of really wound up by some of the decision-making, the turnovers, and I think you sometimes take for granted some of the good that he does. But yeah, I would say it's been a kind of a team effort there.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, good note on the rookies. I immediately after the draft, I thought the Hornets had one of the best draft hauls, just a great selection of complementary role player talent that filled roles that this team needed around 2 stars at the time in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. And Freudian slip, some Lonzo Ball trade rumors is where I was about to segue. Any thoughts on the legitimacy of those rumors and just pairing the Ball brothers together, which, sounds like a lot of fun, bringing another connector point guard with Ball who can hit the open 3 and still has that 2-way feel, even if the injuries have zapped him a little bit of that defensive impact.
I've been talking about the Lonzo Ball trade in theory probably for about 2 or 3 weeks now, so the fact that some rumors have come out, I'm not surprised. I think on the surface it will probably get more media attention because it would be the Ball brothers playing again than it would probably deserve. I think the reason the trade I think makes sense is the Hornets are not anywhere near the tax, and they can add salary. They can add Lonzo's $11 million straight into their mid-level exception for free. They don't even need to trade anyone, so they can give Cleveland pure salary relief. In return for that, I'd probably expect a couple of second-round picks, and then the Hornets can just not pick up that team option for Lonzo this summer and let's say goodbye to him. And you keep your cap flexibility for the offseason. So it's just a way to pick up free second-round picks. You'd probably have to waive Mason Plumlee to do that or Pat Connaughton, which both are kind of like meaningful veteran guys on this roster. But like if you can add picks, then it's probably something you should do for kind of years 3, 4, 5 from now when this team will probably be in a more win now mindset and will have, be needing to have those seconds to dump salaries and make moves for guys. So, I think the Lonzo Ball move makes a lot of sense, but you could see that any salary dumping trade replacing that Lonzo name, I don't think he would be long for this roster. Even if they did take a look at him to try and run that second unit a little bit, he might help with that this year. But if he shoots like the way he has done in Cleveland this year, then he's not going to be helping you really in any way. There could be a world where he comes in and plays a rotation role, but it would definitely just be a 1 year rental unless he came back on like a veteran minimum in the summer and the Hornets wanted to do that. But it's always risky, right? You start like trade for some your star player's brother, and then what if you don't bring him back when you could have? Then does your star player feel bad about that and get frustrated with you? So you've got to be a little bit careful with how you handle the situation and got to make sure that like you're clear with your communication, you're on the same page.
Right. That was actually one of my thoughts was like you're playing with fire just a little bit, but it could be fun where you're kind of doing right by him, bringing his brother in and getting to play together. But there is a very cold business aspect where, like you're saying, this could be as much of kind of an asset acquisition type haul just to pull in some second rounders for some salary, almost a salary dump for the other team. And the Hornets,
it's not a family reunion.
Yeah, but because of the names involved, like it'll be all the buzz for sure. And there is kind of like, I think that is some fun publicity that makes it worth it, as long as everyone's cool with the idea up front. This might be over this summer. Like, let's just get this out of the way up front. Like,
correct.
If everyone's on the same page, let's not lead anybody on here and get LaMelo pissed because we traded for his brother and then let him walk or whatever it is there. Some parting thoughts. I pulled up some Diabate tape from the game you mentioned against the Spurs with Wemby. Any parting thoughts on, it really seems like he has been the key force to unlock, as you've mentioned, the switchable defense, this new play style, just being more mobile on both ends of the floor because of his rim rolling, rim running, shot blocking energy. It's very noticeable, and you can just totally picture in theory, now that it's happened, how a more mobile rim roller, energy shot blocker type kind of fits with LaMelo and Kon Knueppel constantly driving and kicking and moving around a little more than maybe the slower footed Kalkbrenner, even though we have highlighted the positives of what Kalk brings. And you saw something in this Wemby matchup.
Yeah, well, the whole Hornets defensive the whole Hornets defensive system is about protecting the paint. It's about kind of giving up the right threes, is what they call them, which are normally off the dribble threes or threes from guys who are questionable shooters. Even if they're like kind of wide open, they'll be happy to live with those. And Moussa just helps you do that, because with the Kalkbrenner, because the drop is so deep, you often have like Kon Knueppel, LaMelo Ball having to like fight over a screen and then having to get into like a rear contest and get back into the action. And that sets your team into rotation. And Kalkbrenner's then pulled out of defensive rebounding position. And because Diabate can just switch onto the perimeter, and like Bridges and Kon Knueppel and Ball, they can all rebound. So even though Diabate is up the top at contesting a three, you don't suffer defensively on the rebounding issues like you do with a lot of switching bigs when you sometimes have the issue, because there's some natural good defensive reboundings. But yeah, against Wemby, I mean, he was the Hornets. I thought he changed the game. He had double-figure points, double-figure rebounds. I want to say 6 or 7 assists in the game. And he just absolutely kept Wembanyama under control. He didn't let him get free at all. He abused him on the offensive glass. I think Wemby had 1 defensive rebound in the entire game. He was just fighting with Moussa Diabate the whole time. And Moussa was just able to force him into contested shots. He was able to get into the seams of the defense and play make and make good passes when teams started like hard hedging on the LaMelo Ball. So he just has a relentless motor. And he's super fit as well, so he just doesn't stop. He's not like someone after the third quarter, he starts to slow down. He just keeps going all night, and I think he is an absolute pain to play against. And that means something, even though if some of the skill aspects of his game have not been there. But like even that, he's made progress as a free throw shooter. I want to say like last year he was sub 60%. Earlier this season he was up to 70%. So he has made these little strides, both in like playmaking and the short roll, both in free throw shooting. Just those little bits, step by step, help him stay on the floor more.
There it is. One player that comes to mind, maybe it's because of seeing him in the Hornets jersey, is Bismack Biyombo. Are there any comparisons there as someone that covers, the Hornets as kind of a player archetype of maybe what to expect, or maybe even a more mobile, versatile version?
I don't think so. I mean, Biz was like a shot blocker. That was like the first thing you talked about, and Diabate is like not that. He can contest, but he is not just someone who will fly in from everywhere and alter shots too much. He's more of like a position defender. And then the other thing, like offensively, Moussa is a much better decision maker, and you can trust him, taking a couple of dribbles. Biyombo couldn't really do that. But Biz was someone who was like, you could catch him for a lob if he would catch the ball, and you'd maybe kind of be lucky with that. So I don't know if there's too much of a comparison there. Again, Biz was a lot bigger and thicker, so probably a better post defender than Moussa. But Moussa much more fleet and agile on the perimeter.
All right, there it is. Well, Bismack, Charlotte legend, had to give him a shout with all he's been through. But yeah, Moussa seems to really have changed. For sure. Moussa seems to have changed, the whole identity of what this team can do. And, if they're going to have one of the most versatile defenses with one of the most, let's say, floor stretching offenses, like I think the Hornets do as good of a job as bending the defense from the perimeter with their shooting gravity as any team in the league right now, because of that handoff threat that all three of these guys have, along with, some of that rim rolling, rebounding that Diabate brings, but, to create those second chances as well. So it's just really a good match, and a shout out to, the roster being built this way. So any parting thoughts on, the Hornet season, and do you think they will keep this up the rest of the way? Do you think this is just kind of a hot stretch, or, will this sustain going forward?
If they can stay healthy, I think they've got the opportunity to play 500 or slightly above basketball between now and the end of the season. Who knows if they stay healthy? But do I think they're going to be, obviously a 7-game win streak at the minute. Do I think they're going to be winning 80% of their games? No, I don't. I think, they're obviously in a really good moment right now. And my kind of golden rule covering a team is probably never as good as you think they might feel right in the moment. And they're probably never as bad as you think they are in a moment. So they're obviously in a good spell. And I think they could easily make into the play-in now. Whether they can get past the play-in, I think I'd say that's probably a stretch. But I'd say I'm kind of like 60-70% sure they'll make the play-in. And if you told me they're healthy, then I would say it's actually almost like a certainty. But we know this team, that's not something you can trust.
Magic fans know that too well as well, but it's cool to see the Hornets just finally be healthy, hit on all these role players, have a clear rotation identity, and ideally like squash all these LaMelo Ball rumors. I mean, literally just was talking about possible LaMelo Ball, trade rumors just a month or two ago. So it's nice to see those get put to bed a little bit and this clear identity emerge. And, hopefully this is just the beginning. And I agree. I think if they stay healthy, there's no reason this should really slow down. I think they can maintain most of the offense, like top 5 level offense, the rest of the way. And, the defense, the versatility, that's what I'm most interested to see, is like how on the aggregate it looks. And if they sustain it the rest of the way, they're really something scary. They could definitely win a playoff, at least a play-in game to make a playoff series. They're the team you don't want to see in the play-in tournament going forward at that point. But man, the Hornets are definitely, doing the right thing and on a good rise. It's cool to see. So I appreciate you taking the time today, James. Just talking a little Hornets hoops, and we'll have to see if they can keep this up. I mean, the Hornets death lineup, Diabate is for real. I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs, and I think they're doing something right. Like I'm really all in on kind of the way this team is being built and coached, and think they're heading for good things. It's cool to see the fellow Southeast Division rival team, have some success as a fellow covering a small team, I guess, a small market team in that sense. So shout out to you and everything you do, and make sure Everyone make sure to follow at British_Buzz, James Plowright, covering the Hornets and the NBA, doing a great job for great coverage there. So thanks a lot, James. Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from beyond the arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.